Hi, I'm Niamh.
I'm Jen, and
And
we're
we're
Biz
Biz
Buddies.
Buddies. So we are happy to be here with you today because today we're talking about a very fun topic, which is fun.
Woohoo!
How do you have fun in business? Where does fun come in? Does it come in? I don't know.
It should. It should.
You know,
Life's too short to take ourselves seriously all the time.
I think that in our industry, I don't think there's a lot of value placed on fun. Specifically, if we get right down to the female online heart-based entrepreneur, it's like, man, we're a serious bunch of people, I think. And I think part of it is when you're doing a business that feels like it's for a greater purpose, this is something that I want to get out into the world. It's my baby. It's important. We're changing the world in our little corner. I feel like fun sort of starts to drop down on the list of priorities.
I feel like the closest thing people talk about a lot is self-care and self-love,
Yeah.
which are good, but even those sometimes can feel really serious. Like, oh, I need to go get some Epsom salts and candles and do this bath for this amount of time. And now I have taken care of myself. Now I can go back and just
prescribed fun. And actually, that's actually the only problem that I have with self-care is then it feels like another duty, another thing that you're doing because it's going to help you serve others. And I think maybe this also comes in because a lot, and not to generalize, I mean, I know everyone is really unique, but I find that a lot of women, where we struggle to do the stuff that's solely for us, but if we can make it about other people, it's easier for us to do. It's like motherhood and things like that. Where
right.
All about
refill your goblet so that it can overflow onto others, right? But it's, you know what that feels like? That feels like the whole oh, she's somebody's mother, wife, sister. Imagine that person that this thing happened to in relation to others, in relation to a man, in relation to the children. And sometimes we need to not have relation to anybody else.
Yeah, this is this person, right?
I don't have to be someone's mother, sister, wife, daughter.
Yeah.
Yourself, and what do you really enjoy?
But I think in entrepreneurship, that same feeling, that same sense of doing it for others comes into it. It's now I'm doing it for my clients, I'm doing it for my audience, I'm doing it for the change that I want to make in the world. And I think all that stuff is great. I really do. And I think that these are really amazing, really special people who do that. But I also think that then sometimes we leave little room for just enjoyment, right?
Mm-hmm.
No.
And again, this is kind of a cop-out, but I notice I will do it for my kids so that they can have fun. And I do have fun with things that are fun with my kids because I love watching them enjoy and in the state of joy.
Yeah.
That makes me happy, and especially because I did not have a very joyful childhood. There are times when I feel like I am vicariously getting some fun childhood by watching my kids do things that are super fun, like run through water, get wet, get messy, get muddy, go to amusement parks and actually buy the stuff that this was something that came up for me when I took my kids the first time to Disneyland in 2012. It's really hard for my oldest daughter who has autism to do things like wait in line and stand in the sun and not be able to see the thing you want to do and have to wait an hour to get there. So we went once we got a service dog and the guest service pass and everything. And I remember when we were there, I was like, okay, we have to get the ears with the name on it. And I was absolutely my kids could not have cared less about the ears with your name embroidered on it. But that was one of those things where, we went, but we didn't eat the food at the amusement park because it was too expensive. And I didn't get the ears with the names. My cousins all had ears with names and I did not have the ears with the name embroidered on them. So I always felt like we got kind of close to doing things sometimes that other people did, but we wouldn't do it all the way. So I was like, we were eating, well, Tallulah's tube fed, so she can't eat anything she wants in the park, but they were really good about gluten, dairy, peanut, tree nut, fish, and shellfish. The allergen thing we kind of manage. But that was me imposing my idea of what I thought would be fun on my kids. And they didn't care. The ears, I should have gotten myself a pair of ears. That's really what I should have done.
Yes.
Because that was what I thought would be really fun about it. So yeah, so that's another thing too, is like I was trying to do for my kids what I wanted when I was their age, as opposed to what they actually wanted. I mean, they got lots of fun too, but it is funny how we have, like, as moms and wives and daughters and women, all of these, like, this extra baggage we put on enjoyment and fun. And
Yeah, it's like you can create the container for the other people's fun and then enjoy their fun. But I think enjoyment is different from having fun. Like enjoying something is like this sort of like calm, present
it was
feeling.
so enjoyable. So British to me. Oh, what an enjoyable evening.
But fun is like really being in it and just doing it for the sake of doing it. And I think we have a problem with that. I mean, I'm generalizing again, but I know I do have a problem with it. If I'm doing something that's just for me to have fun, I usually feel guilty. I usually feel like either I should be involving my children. Well, I mean, like sometimes I'm having fun with them, but then it's also sort of like duty and all this stuff. But if it's just pure something just for me, I often feel guilty for not including others or not somehow making it about them.
I'm trying to think of what I actually do for fun. I mean, I read. That's just an activity I do alone and that I love. I like writing. I like eating nice food. But I'm like, is that fun? That feels like treating myself to something. On a regular basis and without my children, I don't feel like I do a lot of things that are just fun. I mean, the weekly talks with Niamh, I mentioned this before we hit record. I was like, sometimes we talk about downer topics or things that are stressing us out or getting us upset, on our private calls that we're still trying to work in as we record as well. But I do look forward to it, and I do feel like it's fun just sharing with someone else. Actually, my book club, which has totally gone defunct since some people moved away, I'd like to restart my book club because that felt fun and just for me, having a few women who I could go with in person, have cocktails, and talk about maybe books if we all read it. If we didn't, we just talk about other things. Like, that felt kind of fun.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Like our calls are fun. Like Mike always knows when I'm talking to you because like he hears loud laughing coming from the room. When I think about fun, I like games, or like I did when I was younger, so I like kid fun stuff. And what's funny about that is, like, a couple of years ago, we went to an event that was in Anaheim in the convention center, and our kids had gone to Disneyland, right, that year. This was when they were like small, and we'd gone off for one day to Disneyland, and I mean, they were too young to really enjoy it. But then later that year, we were at this event, and it was in Anaheim, and we went to Disneyland, just the two of us, and we got the park hopper ticket, and we ran around to absolutely everything, and it was so much fun. And at some point, like, it was raining really hard, and we were kind of like running around hiding from water. And I think it was just the idea of like just doing something because it will be enjoyable. Really, really felt good, because I almost never do things that doesn't have some kind of greater purpose. Like, I like going for walks, but it feels like the walk is for my health and my exercise and my spiritual connection. And it's not just to have fun,
Yeah, that's true. Actually, as you were saying that, I thought about when my family came to England this year, and Stu and I played a reunion show for our band, which we hadn't done in years. When I used to tour, that was truly fun for me. Mm-hmm. But not always the part on stage. So as a bass player and a backup singer, no problem, no stress. I never get stage fright. When I'm a guitar player and a singer, especially when I used to do acoustic, it was actually painful, but I would put up with the anxiety over, because I don't have a super strong voice, and I have a very, like, one of my favorite reviews of my voice was called it an every girl voice, like every girl singing in the showers. It's not a Mariah Carey. And I felt like that was part of the point of indie music, is anyone can sing it, like folk music. Anyone can make up songs, you do this. But it, any little thing would interfere, like any little scratch, and it would be so naked when it was just me. So I would put up with that, like, pain of anxiety playing solo, because I loved travel and meeting people so much. And when we were over there, we did this show, and it was like just so much good feeling and people hanging out. Like a lot of the old band members, I had never met some of them from the original Boy Racer band. Friends that we knew, like we had people, someone flew from Minnesota and someone flew from Germany. Like we had people who came a long ways to come see this one show because it was just this one reunion show. And it felt really fun. And then the other thing was when I insisted that we go to Ireland to see Niamh,
That was fun.
that was fun. There were some difficulties and stressful things around it, but it was so fun to just go do it, like
lunch
in person.
Right. So when we disappeared for lunch and we abandoned your family and we abandoned everybody and we like went to this really cool lunch place and we sat there for like a couple of hours.
That was great.
That was fun. That was just like, let's talk, let's giggle. It felt decadent to just be like, we are just going to spend some time. And I think we probably even excused ourselves being like, well, we need to mastermind and do some work.
We're researching for our retreat right now.
Yes.
And actually, the place it was an old church that they turned into a restaurant. So it had stained glass and like we were up in the balcony and the sun coming through the stained glass. It was a really nice experience. And the food was excellent. I mean, for being a small town, like rural Irish town, it was really like, I'd say give it 4 to 5 stars.
I thoroughly enjoyed that.
And for anyone who's into UK humor, the night before Niamh came, I went with Stu's family there and my kids, and we saw Graham Norton there.
Yes, which if you are from the UK, you don't even need to be into humor. You know who that is.
I only knew who he was because he appeared in Father Ted once.
Oh my God, that's so weird. Look, he's like, if this is really awkward, we just had a major internet problem. We're back. So yeah, so that really was a very fun lunch.
Yeah, that was good. So I'm going to put meeting up with people in person as something fun that I want more of.
Also with like, you know, the weekly calls, like where you can see someone. For me, that's fun. Like being on the phone, not fun. Being on a Zoom call, fun. You know, like.
I agree. I like Zooms much better. I know this sounds awful. I rarely answer my phone. If it's my mom or my husband or the school or caregivers for my kids or something like that. But yeah, I don't answer very many calls.
Yeah.
I figure it's someone who got my number through some petition I signed or some donation I made back when I was afraid that, you know, Obama would lose or Hillary would lose. Yeah, I hate when people call me on the phone. I mean, obviously, if it's a friend or something, that's fine. But I prefer this.
I always answer my phone because nobody calls me because I never give it out. I'm like I'll give it to the doctor's office for making an appointment, you know, and like, so if it's ringing, it's probably important, which is funny. I don't think you can do that in America though. I think that you somehow end up on a list.
Well, it's my only phone. Yeah, I don't have a house phone. So anytime I have to put my, like, you know, my insurance, everywhere that I fill out any form, basically that's the number. Yeah. All of my kids' stuff, that's the number.
Yeah. But see, and then you feel really tethered. So I find like with a Zoom call or something like that, it feels like a real conversation. And it also, like, as the giant introvert, like it doesn't feel totally draining. So it's fun. But
I can't just Zoom you anytime I want. Like, we have to both be in the same Zoom room. It's not like I'm like, well, I mean, we're in Slack and stuff, so I can message you. But things like Slack, email, and Zoom, you can do it on your own time at specific times. So it's not invasive into your life. Invasive is not. Yeah.
Which is funny because, like, when we're like teenagers, I would have been like totally into like being on the phone and all that would have been super cool. But it just, I find that like my sense of fun definitely shifts, you know, as I go. And like there's things that I find really fun, like games and things like that. But it's kind of like about pleasing yourself. It's like, what would I do if there's no one else around? And like sometimes this happens. Everyone leaves the house. And it's just you for an evening. Now, Jen, this probably never happens to you.
Probably.
What would you do?
You know, it made me think of at my in-laws' house in England when, you know, the time zones are so different. So even communicating with people over here at times when it was inconvenient for that, And when everyone was asleep, and I had jet lag, or Miffy be up with jet lag, but she'd just want to watch a movie or something. I actually did do some Sudoku and crossword puzzles. And I do remember, I used to love this game called Balderdash. Have you ever played Balderdash?
Yes.
So I do kind of love word games and like charade type things, or things where you're trying to guess what someone else is doing, or those games where you like put a name on your forehead and everyone's telling you about yourself and you have to figure out who you are. I like those, party games.
Have to have game night at the retreat.
Okay, when we do our retreat, we'll totally have game night. It'll be so fun.
Yeah, like, so when I am left totally to my own devices, well, what I used to do, like if Mike would go out or something for an evening, I'd put the kids to bed and I'd order pizza because it felt like completely decadent. I'm realizing that for me, fun comes from like decadence, and like buying something I feel like is like over the top. So I would order pizza and I would like watch a girly movie or something, because Mike is not one of those guys that you can talk into watching girly movies. So I'd be like, I'm going to watch something totally frivolous. So it seems like I get my fun out of pointless stuff, out of feeling like I'm doing all this stuff that's for a point 90% of the time. Every now and again, I'm not going to. And so what I like, oh, you just lost your light.
I just lost my light. Oh, I didn't have it charged enough, I guess. It is a bizarrely cloudy day in Arizona here. So I needed that light. Oh, well. This might be telling us to wrap it up, too, between our technical problems and my light going out.
Oh, my gosh. But, yeah, so I do find that, like, something without a point is fun. Or, like, I also like to do those games that I was talking about on the phone. I listen to audiobooks, and I'll play games on my phone. I read. But then also, I think even though we don't have a lot of fun external to a purpose, it's also okay to have fun with a purpose. Like in business, like recording this podcast is fun, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's really fun. I'm glad that we're doing this. It kind of like brightens up the week.
Yeah. Yeah, for me too. Like, because I was doing I've just got a ton on at the moment, tons of little things. I'm like, oh, but then I've got my Gen call, and that's gonna be really fun, you know? And so I think that it's like, it's okay to have fun without a purpose, and it's okay to have fun with a purpose, you know? Like, I find challenges are mostly fun because I'm meeting new people, but I can only do it for a certain amount of time. And hanging out with you is fun, you know? And anything where I'm really interacting with people in a contained way where I don't feel overwhelmed. It's fun.
Yeah. You know what I just noticed? At the bottom of both pages of my planner are two areas that I almost never fill in, and I'm realizing I should. Can I show you what they say?
What do they say?
That one says, today I'm grateful for, and I usually forget it. And this one says, savor the success. Like, what are you going to do? What is going to be your savor activity where you like dedicate your activity to a specific success? So either you're like celebrating something, but also just something to savor in your day. And I don't fill those in often enough. So maybe we should make some daily reminders for ourselves to do work some fun thing in.
It's hard, you know, like I always have trouble with planners when they're like, what will be your reward when you do the thing? It's like, I don't know.
I really struggle with that too. Because I feel like when I want or need something, I mean, I don't just absolutely spoil myself every minute, but if something comes up and it's, you know, and it makes sense to do at that time, I often don't withhold something, you know, like,
yeah. Like I'll buy a book if I want a book.
Yeah, if I want a book, I'll buy a book. If the time works and it works with my family to go do a nice meal when I want a nice meal, I'll often do it. I mean, to be honest, we've been really shorthanded for help this summer for babysitters, and I can't remember the last time. We celebrated my little sister's birthday and my niece's birthday by going out to dinners, but that's not quite the same as like, we haven't had a date night maybe all summer. You know what I mean? I haven't had nights where I've gone out by myself because we've not had it. So
yeah, we haven't
things like that.
We haven't like ever had a date. No, that sounds horrible. But it's like we don't have anyone to watch the kids, so
yeah. And also you're very rural. I'm very rural. Like our options are a little more like when you're saying order a pizza for people who live in New York City. Ordering a pizza.
Do that anymore. No one delivers
to where you live.
Which is sad, but also good because it means that now, like, it's not very healthy and it's kind of expensive and I really miss it.
Well, maybe when you move to your new place, which we'll definitely have to celebrate when you do that. But yeah, I feel kind of the same way. Like, I don't know that I've ever gotten food delivered to this house. I mean, we're not so far from what restaurants we have. I usually drive if there's something we want, but yeah, there's.
But so many of my rewards are food, which I'm sure like must be like some kind of mental thing, unhealthy thing. But I definitely like anytime I do a lunch, I'll usually go and buy a cake with the kids. And I find that really fun. And we have glow stick parties. So we'll go buy a big tube full of glow sticks, and they get these balloons that like have lights in them, and then stay up and we turn out all the lights and make it as dark as possible. And I've taught them how to like link the glow sticks together, and we'll all stand around waving them around, and it's fun.
Yeah, see, again, I think the fact that you and I are both so rural, I mean, at least I'm on the grid now. Before I met Niamh, from 2003 till 2010, I lived off the grid. So not only
know that that's
no,
crazy.
yeah, that's when we lived on the ranch. I didn't move in. It was when Tallulah was diagnosed with autism, and we needed daily therapy. We were trying to do 25 to 40 hours a week of ABA therapy, as well as OT and speech. It was an hour each way, so it was a 2-hour round trip out to our house from the city. And we had to pay travel for therapists. So for a little while, I rented an office in town where we did therapy, but then the other office people in the building complained because my daughter screams a lot, especially doing ABA therapy when you first start. Kids, there's a lot of resistance. And she's just really loud, besides screaming. But then we rented an apartment. And then when Miffy was diagnosed too, we were like, this is not a 1 to 2 year thing. This is at least 5 years we need to be in. So we moved in. And that was kind of during the time too, I realized that being so attached to one location without much internet, we hauled our water, we had solar panels, we did have a phone booster so we could get some internet, but it was very difficult.
You don't have water?
Oh no, there's no pipelines that go out there. I mean, because we had the ranch, we had wells. So we would use the water truck to fill up the water truck from the well, drive it to our house. We had a 5,000 gallon tank up on a hill. So when it was full, we had pretty good water pressure, but we didn't even have pumps for the water. So when it got down to the bottom, like as you felt the water pressure getting less and less in the house, that was how we knew it was time to refill the tank again. Gosh. And everything ran either on gas or like what electricity we had was so little. It was mainly for light. So we had like a gas refrigerator, a gas stove. We did run a agitator as opposed to a clothes washer. We had an agitator with a mangle, and we hung our clothes to dry. And the first 2 years we were out there, it was, as a couple, a young couple, it was exciting. It was like pioneers, I was reading The Olive Farm by Carol Drinkwater. Do you know Carol Drinkwater?
No.
So if you ever watch the old All Creatures Great and Small, the BBC version, she was his wife. And I love Carol Drinkwater. So she wrote a book about her and her French lover who I think they eventually may marry. They bought an olive farm in France together, like southern France. Not too far. So like she goes to the Cannes Film Festival at one point, and it's not that far. But it's like been abandoned for maybe 50 years. So everything about it, they have to start from scratch. And it reminded me so much of what Stu and I were doing out there. So I had this fantasy about me writing my version of an olive farm book while we lived out there, about basically like going totally back to basics. The problem was once we had kids, it just like things that were kind of exciting to do because I'd never washed with an agitator and a mangle before, but it was so time consuming. Like just the basic things that mod cons take care of, not having those mod cons took a lot of my day. So once autism came in, I was like, we're out of here.
That's it. Yeah, because even just having a baby, I think without a baby and no washing machine would be really hard. Like after I had kids, I was like, okay, I can't live without a dryer anymore. Like most rental properties, well, at the time, maybe not now, but most rental properties in Ireland at the time really almost would never have a dishwasher or a dryer. They would always have a washing machine. And I found that really challenging to like always hang stuff out, and it's kind of humid and
here everything goes hard when you hang it out too. Yeah, I hate that. I love her.
Bad at taking it out in time, and then it goes smelly and just smells like slightly weird and musty, and you're like, I washed it.
Yeah. But that's the thing with the mango. Either they're sitting in water or you're squeezing it all out and then you hang each one. So I really couldn't leave them.
Yeah, there you go.
It was super, super labor intensive. Like our life was so labor intensive when we were out there. But it was good for a few years. It was good.
That itself can be kind of fun. I think there's something, I think humans like to create stuff. And so I think sometimes like I only think of fun as like games and frivolous and decadent. But like I genuinely have a lot of fun when I'm being productive. So it's like I find business hard if I'm like struggling with a decision or having trouble with a communication with somebody, or like just generally finding it hard to get myself to work. Sometimes that happens, but if I'm like feeling like I'm in the flow and getting stuff done, or if I have this to-do list and I knock stuff off really quickly, I just get this satisfaction that's really fun. And I'm really like, I'm doing it, you know, and also it's really fun. And this is weird, but I think it's really fun getting money. Like when money comes in from something you created out of nothing, like when you create some kind of content or course, or you set up a website and then somebody wants it and they pay you for it. It's like, wow.
That is pretty exciting. Yeah, actually, we just released a bunch of records in August. For some reason, these built up more. So we did 6 all at once, which is kind of a lot to ask of our list to like, hey, you want all 6 of these? So we did like a bundle and a discount.
All the music.
but it's, yeah, that's exciting too. Because especially with something creative like that. I mean, well, online entrepreneurship is very similar. Like there's nothing and then you create content or this thing that's digitally delivered, or, you know, it's a little harder with shipping because shipping vinyl record, like once we do it, we're like, yay, look, all the money came in. Oh, and now we have to do shipping for everything.
That was all the work.
You have to pack and ship for days. But yeah, it is really exciting.
Yeah, I used to have a friend who ran a really, really successful Etsy shop. She had one of those Scrabble tile jewelry shops.
Yeah.
And she really, really, like, she really enjoyed it, but her and her husband used to like sit and binge watch Netflix shows while filling orders, because it would just be like the orders would come in, but they would just have to do all of this making, boxing, labeling, getting them out. And their like entire family income came from that. And to me, like, and I think this is kind of very like for entrepreneurs, that kind of thing is like, oh, fun. That's really exciting. Like, an idea of doing something. And also I agree with you, like if it's art, or like I've never actually written anything fiction or created anything just for the sake of art, but I think that'd be a really good feeling too.
You've started. I've read a couple things you sent me. Remember when we were doing that? We're like, we had this while where we thought we would send each other a story a week for a little bit.
Yeah, that's it. Like, no, you sent several stories and I sent like one. Oh my gosh. I definitely got them all on that one.
I've been trying to doing micro stories.
Yeah.
Flash fiction. Try some flash fiction. That's always fun.
Well, I recently, and we talked about this on a recent episode, but I recently bought a course on writing, on like, you know, kind of structuring novels and stories and things like that. And I think that would be really fun to get into doing something like that. Cause it's, I don't know, like, see, I think part of my problem with that is that I read a lot about like authors, and they'll be like, I was always, you know, writing stories from when I was this age, and I always knew I would be this. And I was like, I wasn't. I'm not always creating worlds in my head. I'm like, I feel very uncreative, actually. And
your worlds are different, though.
Yeah, but you'll hear someone else's story, and you'll compare your own, and you'll go, well, I didn't follow the exact same path, therefore, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, you know what? The other day I got a Writer's Digest letter that was like, it's never too late. And it was this woman who, when she turned 50, had never written or published anything, but I forget how old she was. So her family has very short life expectancies for some reason or another. She was talking about, she figured she had about 5 decades in which to do everything she wanted to do in her life. And when she hit 50, she hadn't written a book yet, and she did her first book. And now she has a couple books out. And so like her post-50 author career. And I found that really inspiring, because I was one of those people who always thought I'd be an author. Like, I got a degree in creative writing. I always meant to. And I kind of feel like being in indie bands and touring for so long, because I toured pretty much from 98 to about 2005. We had some breaks, but I didn't take up a full-time position somewhere else until about 2005. I was, we were writing records and we were doing things that felt creative, but I still have not published a novel.
Yeah, I think I always wanted to be an author, but apart from, like, I can remember a few story ideas that I came up with as a kid, but like now, I just always hear about people, building worlds in their head. I'm like, I really don't do that. But you're right. Everyone is different. We should do a podcast on creativity, because I have a lot of trouble with the word creative and how it applies or doesn't apply to me.
Well, and a lot of people's lives, the lives that they live, inform what they do too. And you've done a lot of interesting things. Like, you're an American living in Ireland. Not everyone does that. Your father was an Irishman living in America. Not everyone has, like, you guys kind of swapped places. Like, that's kind of a fascinating story too, just how that works.
Funny, this year, I will have been here 15 years and he will have been there 50 years.
Wow.
Just a significant milestone for us both.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay. Do you think we covered fun?
Oh my gosh, yeah. We kind of got derailed a bit, but I think we talked about fun as something that you do just for the heck of it, as well as how you can, like, it's okay to have fun within the things that you're doing.
And we also exposed how rural and secluded we both are. Because I couldn't help thinking some of the things we talked about, anyone in a major city would be like, huh? Oh, really?
That sounds fun to be able to, like, go out and do stuff. But then I find rural suits me.
And on that note, if you like what you hear, please remember to subscribe, rate, and review on iTunes.
And go ahead and subscribe to us on YouTube if you're watching, and leave us a comment below and let us know, what do you do for fun? And maybe you can give us some ideas.
Yeah, totally. That would be great to hear. Okay, well, thank you guys for watching and listening, and we will see you next week.